many fears. To narrow it down to just one is a little, but fear of failure is the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
Is that you look at people in the face and it's like, you're doing what? You're going to take your business and you're going to move it on the other side of the state?
Yeah. Welcome to the Lasting Business Solutions Podcast, Indy's launchpad to sustain business growth, success, and leadership. My name is Renee Lucas. I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about signs or indications that it might be time to make a change in your business. I am so excited to have the owner and operator of A B Farmhouse located in Noblesville, Indiana, here with me today to discuss this, Andy Stone. Andy has a very diverse background in real estate. He has served as the broker and owner of A&B Homes, and he's held key roles as account executive at First American Title and a public relations manager for Security Home Inspections. His experience also includes positions as a shift manager at Starbucks, as well as being a realtor for Nathan Allen Realty, Trio Realty, and the FC Tucker Companies. Andy's career further extends to project management at McAllister Publishing Services and manufacturing coordination at Macmillan Publishing, where he honed his leadership skills as a layout tech supervisor. A fun fact about Andy is his claim to fame is having his name in the 4th edition of Webster's New World College Dictionary. Not many people can say that, Andy. Andy Stone, welcome. Thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Super excited. Always good to see you, Renee.
Yes, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's always fun to celebrate together as well.
Uh-huh.
So, Andy, we're going to talk a little bit about you and your business. Your resume is impressive, and I will say you have such community leadership. I know. We've known each other for so many years. We actually met networking years ago.
Go way back.
Yes, and I've always been impressed with your vision and your eye for what can be. And so let's talk a little bit about homes, so your experience in real estate. I know that you can see a home that is sad and dilapidated and just the soreness, the eyesore on the block, right? And you have this vision for the home that it can be, and it turns into the most welcoming front porch on the whole block. And so how did that transition into retail with A&B Farmhouse?
Yeah, sure. So I get the question all the time is that, did I go to school for this? And so, God gives us different gifts in many different categories. Yeah. And I just have that vision that most people don't have.
You're right.
And I think, I can always see it, but it's like I can't understand why other people can't see it. And so that's just part of it.
It's very overwhelming. I don't have that talent. I don't have an eye. I like to enjoy what's done after it's done, but I don't have an eye for what it can be. And I think that it's such a strength that you have. So in real estate, creating a space for people, I'm like, hey, this is what this house could be like. This is how you can make it a home, right? And I know when I've walked into your store, you've got different areas set up to where it might be a bedroom or it might be a living room. How do you think that makes people feel when they're in your store?
Well, that's what I love about it. So when I first started to think about how to create A&B Farmhouse and what to do with it, is that I would have people come over to our house and say all the time, "Where'd you get that? Oh, that's really cool. Where did you get that?"
Yeah.
And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to create an experience where you walk into a retail shop and it kind of feels like home, and you create that, and then everything in there is for sale. And so I basically shop over 12 different vendors and suppliers to see what I personally like, and everything's hand-selected to be in the store, or else it wouldn't be there. And when I did that, I had some retail background that maybe wasn't listed on that list of to-dos, but when I was at FC Tucker, I'd had a part-time job that worked at Bombay retail store in the mall, in the off seasons and that type of stuff. If you remember that store,
I do.
And then I really enjoyed that, and it wasn't really like going to work. It was just something fun to do and made some little extra money. And I was like, how do I create something like that, but it feels like a home? And that's how A and B Farmhouse was kind of born. Bought a building in Brazil, Indiana, and didn't really know what we were going to do with that building. Again, there was a vision there. It was a dilapidated building,
Right.
vacant for about 7 years. Everybody else couldn't really see the vision of like the collapsed ceiling tiles laying on the floor, and
It's hard to see past that. It really
yeah,
is.
yeah. And so wasn't sure what to do with that space, and then met a friend of a friend with Ashley Furniture, and I had no idea that Ashley Furniture actually sold to small little mom and pop type retail stores.
I didn't
And
know
then that is how it kind of came about, is that she said, why don't you sell furniture in this space? And then I was like, I added to that. I was like, oh my gosh, I could create a retail experience where you come in and it feels like home, but you're just selecting from different items.
So why you mentioned Brazil? Are
Yep.
you from Brazil? Like why Brazil, Indiana?
So the why, it wasn't just to take a dart and
Yeah.
throw and land on
Most
someplace
people don't
in
even know where
Indiana.
Brazil is.
Nope.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea where Brazil, Indiana was at first either. But I'm the A in the A and B, and Brandon, my ex-partner, is
The
the B.
Yeah.
And so he and his family are originally from Brazil, Indiana. So that's
Okay.
where he grew up.
Yes.
So when we moved to Brazil, it was to be closer to Brandon's family. And so and when we moved back, it was actually the start of the pandemic. And
Great timing. Andy.
Great timing, interesting timing.
Yeah.
And so we were going to focus on the real estate business,
Which is A and B Homes that we
A&B
mentioned.
Homes.
Okay.
And then I was managing broker for that, and I was so burnt out on real estate. Brandon has the knack and ability, kind of again a talent that nobody else has. His calling is for real estate transactions,
Yeah.
and so we focused on that and got that up and running. And he's full force on the A&B Homes side of the business, and we landed in Brazil and had no. I didn't know hardly anybody in Brazil, Indiana.
Okay. So you really didn't have like a client base before going in. You didn't have relationships, strong networking, anything.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
What I built in Brazil was basically, you know me, and you've known me for a long
Mhm.
time. My ability to connect with people is,
So easy.
you know, it's easy.
It's natural.
I make eye contact at somebody at a gas station, and they start talking to me, and I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't know where the
You're
nearest.
probably like, I gotta go.
Right? And so, but Brazil opened their hearts and their doors to me and that community, and I just started doing what I do best, is getting out in the community. And I figure, when you're actively engaged and involved in the community,
Mhm.
that comes back to you tenfold. Is that when I give back to the community gives back to me. And so what I learned from that is that started to do things in the community that helped improve the overall appeal and likability of Brazil, Indiana. And when I first moved there, I had no idea that there is a fountain in Brazil, Indiana, that was dedicated and donated from the country of Brazil, South America.
No way. Oh, I
It
didn't know
is
that.
our Statue of Liberty in Indiana that
Wow.
nobody even knows about.
No.
And a lot of the locals, they drive, you become complacent. You drive past something every day and you don't
stop
even
seeing it.
think about it.
Yeah.
And when I saw how it looked when I first moved there, I was like, I started to walk over and I read the plaque on it, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then I started to do some investigating on it.
It's a landmark.
And it's a landmark. And I was like, I'm gonna take initiative and do my Andy magic on this.
Yeah.
And got a grant to do some landscaping around the fountain, and really did a beautification project and it's still continuing today. We're waiting on some spring weather to break to finish sidewalks around that.
And maybe so those flowers can pop up.
Right, exactly. And so anyway, putting my heart and soul into the community, and then creating a customer base there, and then really creating a destination spot to bring people to Brazil with the A&B Farmhouse, because I would attract customers from the other side of the border, being close to Illinois,
Right.
Marshall, Illinois, and then Terre Haute, obviously, Greencastle, and then Brownsburg and Avon, the west side of Indianapolis. But a lot of people were coming from the Indianapolis area as well. So, it was a good thing.
You know, talking a little bit about the community, I hear so many business owners, and I've been guilty of it myself, say, like, I want to do this, but I just don't have the time, right? And this is where business owners, they get stuck in the day-to-day and what they're looking at, and they don't have a vision outside of that. I love what you said about you give a little time for the community, and it comes back tenfold. The mural that you've done on the side of the building, let's talk about that for a minute, because that's something that is just beautiful, and it took a building that everybody drives past, and you get complacent driving past it, and it pops, and it's something too that it's a statement for the town now. So is that something that you did for A B Farmhouse, or did you do it for the community? Was it both? Like, where did that vision come from?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, because it served several different purposes. Is that when we bought the building, there was an old mural that was painted on there by a local artist, and it had been probably 12 years that mural had been there.
Okay.
Faded,
Yeah.
chipping. The brick on that building, 1800s brick. So I mean, it needed some work and repairs.
Sure.
So in order to do that, I wanted to be, conscious of respecting the local artists that had done that, but updating it and upgrading it in a way to tell a story of the city of Brazil. And so when I selected the artist, Becky Holchalker, who is from Terre Haute, and I knew that I saw Becky's work, and I really wanted her to be a part of creating this story that tells what Brazil has. And if you look at the mural, it's different murals within a big mural to tell a story of a city. And so in that mural, there's a mural of the fountain wall that I'm talking about in Brazil. And so that's part of the story of the city.
That is really cool. I think so many people, I know I traveled to visit A B Farmhouse because you have a really strong social media presence, and you do a lot of video, and you provide a lot of content, and you get a lot of tips, which I really appreciate, because as somebody who, like I said, I don't naturally have an eye for that. I can walk into your store and I was like, ooh, one of the things, I don't know if you remember, but one of the things that I purchased from your store was this candle thing with this, I don't even know what these things are called.
The flame illusion candle. I know exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm.
But I got it specifically for my yoga room. I turned a bedroom into my yoga space, and it had just the right amount of lighting, and you let me test it out, and you were like, hey, it'll look really good in here. Gave me a couple options for that. I really appreciated that kind of concierge level service. You know what I mean? Like I might really enjoy shopping at Hobby Lobby, but I'm on my own in there, right? And so to be able to walk into your space, have your eye that's right along with me when I say, this is what I want, I think that you can really differentiate yourself as a business and as a business owner in that way. And then because you naturally are just a genuinely friendly and curious person, you like to hear people's stories, and you ask people questions about themselves. And I think a lot of business owners can learn from that on like, hey, how do we build relationships? How do we make our space a destination, right? So I wonder, I know coming to your retail store was my first time in Brazil. And so when we were there, I also, I went to a tea shop and had tea there and lunch with a friend of mine that I brought with me. And it was a destination. It was a road trip. It was something to do on a really dreary Saturday,
right.
You know what I mean, here in Indiana. And it made it a really fun, great day.
Yeah, because when you're talking about a business and what makes you different and unique from other businesses, anybody can go online to Amazon and get home decor, retail type stuff, but when they come to A B Farmhouse, they're looking for Andy, and they're looking for my exactly what you said.
Yeah.
And so when you create that experience, that's what keeps people coming back. And and not to sound egocentric or anything like that, but I am what makes A B Farmhouse. And so one of my employees in Brazil, Megan, would always be like, you'll never guess, who came in asking for you today type thing. And so, and that's the other part of it too, is that, you find employees that when you're not there, because you can't be there every single day, but
You can't, because I feel like a lot of business owners feel like that they have to.
I try, but I mean,
you can't.
I just can't.
No.
You just can't. And so Megan is a fun, sarcastic individual, and she brings her own little uniqueness to the table type thing. And so when I moved to Noblesville, I've got a lot of people that come from Greencastle that ask me about Megan.
Did
and
she
so,
come with you?
and right, and so you find people that can fill that void, but it is what it is.
It's hard. So, how long were you in Brazil? How long was A and B Farmhouse?
4.5 years.
So over those 4.5 years, were there any tweaks that you made or any changes that you made from when the store first opened to to where we are today?
Yep. I feel like every day is a tweak, right? Is that I always keep an open mind as to how to, make myself better, and same thing with the business as well. And so when I was deciding on making this change, and the change developed and came about because when Brandon and I split, it was amicable, and that's fine. We're still friends to this day, but ultimately, I wanted to be back to Indianapolis, which is where I call home for the majority of my adult life. And I started to think, what do I want to do? And I kept looking at Noblesville, Indiana, and the downtown historic square of downtown Noblesville is such charm and character that reminds me of Brazil in a small community type environment. But there's 75,000 people compared to the 8,000 people in Brazil, right? And so when you look at the demographics of it, is that I just kept thinking, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? And, change is tough, and it's always scary and terrifying to make that leap.
Yeah.
Because, and if you don't do it, I don't live life with regrets. And it's like, if I wouldn't have, I could have stayed in Brazil, continued to do my thing, and, just kept pushing along the grind until retirement type thing, right? But I really think that there's more to it than that, and I think Noblesville is where I need to be.
I think one of our core values in our business is education and training, right? It doesn't matter how long you've been in your trade or in your industry, whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter where you are in your professional or personal life. You can always grow. You can always learn. You can always challenge yourself. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, because that's a really big change, is to move your business from one city to another city, and it's not next door, right?
Right.
But then there's also these little things all along the way. And you said that, I feel like I'm challenging myself and I'm changing every single day. And that could be something that, the market has changed, and recognizing that, maybe your market has changed, or seasonality. I'm sure just in seasonality times that you have to change.
Yep.
I know too, before we get to your really big transition of moving, you have some shows that you'll do as well. Like, you have a little mini A and B farmhouse and a little camper, right? What brought that along? Like, what made you decide that was a next step for your business?
Yeah, so the pop-up markets was the next step of what you're talking about. Is like year one in Brazil was fantastic. There was profit, and then 2 and 3 is staggered off and leveled out type thing. And so I was like, well, I need to figure out what I can add to the store to get a little bit more of the income on those off seasons, like you're saying,
right.
And in the the particular, like, Christmas season, that's a busy time for me. So I mean, I need something else to bring in income for other seasons. So I came up with this idea to go to the markets and that type of stuff, and came up with this idea of buying a 1963 camper and turning it into a mobile market. And it's so adorable.
Yes.
People love it.
Yeah.
And so I did that last year, and I'm not committed to doing that this year because I've got so much going on with the new store and focusing on that. And so I will have the mobile market set up for the Peonies Festival that's coming up in May in Noblesville. but it was one more way of like exploring and seeing what's out there and
Yeah.
what I can do.
Yeah.
Now, what I will tell you is that this may surprise you. Everybody would say that they loved it, they loved the look of it or whatever. It's not a moneymaker. It just
Really?
it didn't increase the income like I thought it would. And so I learned a lot from that. Is that you pay these fees to these mobile markets.
Yep.
You go and set. You've got to be very strategic in figuring out which markets that you attend that has the most number of people coming in, type thing,
Sure.
right? But it was not a moneymaker like I thought. But what it was, and this is an educational type thing,
Mm-hmm.
it was marketing. It got my name out there. People would see it, they love it, and they think A and B Farmhouse, I need to come to that store type thing. So it wasn't an investment that paid off like that day,
Right. But
it
down
pays
the road.
off in the long run.
What percentage of people, if you have an idea on this, what percentage of people do you think came to the store because they saw you in a market?
And that's very hard. I tried to track that because when I went to the Indianapolis Flower and Patio Show, set up a really cute display there. I basically was an ambassador to the city of Brazil to try to get people to come to Brazil to come to the store, because again I figured out that that's a marketing thing that may not pay off today, tomorrow,
Mhm.
or the next day, but it was hard to track because I gave out coupons there, but people may leave those coupons at home, or
Sure. Sure.
and if I'm not in the store, I'm not having that conversation with what brings you in today, or so it was hard to track.
I think it's so. As a business owner, when you're wearing a million hats, right? You're the face of the business, you're the financial side of the business, you're the marketing side of the business, you're there running, checking people out, all of the things that you're doing. And it's really difficult. We've had that conversation many times. It's like, man, how did these people hear about us? And then if they, if they're not sure, do we dig a little? Do we ask? It's a
Right.
very
How
fine
far
balance.
do you go? Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
but it's such valuable information for the business. I love that even though the result of those pop-up markets aren't what your intentions were for it, I love that you learn things from it. And just think too, when it comes to your branding, you've got such a strong brand with A and B, right? So A and B Homes, A and B Farmhouse, A and B Pop-ups. And so even if we're not doing those consistently, you have that brand and people have seen you here and they've seen you here and they've seen you here. I think it's so important to take the time to build that brand in the community.
Totally.
So not a loss. Okay, so we have that. And you never know. I will say, Travis and I have done like a home show as well. And knowing your audience when you do those things is very important. So, for example, we would not set up at the Flower and Patio Show because nobody wants to talk about heating and air conditioning when it's flower and patio time, right? And so now, in our mind, air conditioners play such a big role on the aesthetics of your house, because if you have a big box sitting on the side of your house, it can be really unattractive. And so at a flower and patio show, if we were going to work that angle, which we could, it would just take a lot of effort, a lot of planning, a lot of manpower, and a lot of money. So looking at, okay, what is my payoff on that? Is it a payoff dollar-wise right now? Is it a payoff in branding down the road? Is it a payoff in networking? We were set up at a home show not too long ago, and some of the connections that we made that actually panned out into work were other exhibitors there.
Yep.
And so that's something that I never even thought of.
Totally.
That's the connections that we made that totally paid off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I asked, I know enough people that I asked several different people to get an idea of like what to put into the Flower and Patio Show, for example, is that, I knew the pros and cons going into it. I asked another retail business, they had done it in the past, and I knew that they'd done it. And actually, that's how I met them. And so I was like, well, one good thing came out of it. That's how I met you, type thing, right? And so I knew the pros and cons of it, and they were kind of negative. I won't want to say negative about it, but he spelled out, it's not worth it to me, type thing. And and I go, I get it, I hear you, and I'm going to do it anyway. And and so.
Well, and maybe learning from those negatives that they experienced. Yeah. Okay, I've seen if you set up at a home show and you're plopped back in a chair on your phone, it's going to be a disaster for you. You have to be engaged. You have to be on. And I think, for me, I'm very mentally prepared for that. I mean, it's 8 hours of smile on my face, time to bring your A game,
Right.
interact, eye contact, all of those things, knowing that this is going to take a lot of energy, but you're representing the brand that you have right there. And so taking some of those negatives and like, how can I learn? I was at a class last week and they put a quote up on the screen and it says, "Only fools learn from their own mistakes. The wise man learns from the mistakes of others." And I was like, well, I'm a fool every day because I'm always learning from these mistakes.
Right?
However, that's a great example of, the negativity or negative feelings come from because it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, right?
Totally.
But to be the wise man who's learning from those and saying, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to try it, and I might tweak it based on what I have here. Like you said before, you don't want to have regrets in your business, right? And so if there's something that you're not sure about, try it once.
Right.
You know what? Try it twice. Try
Right.
it 3 times before
Right.
you say, maybe that wasn't
Right.
quite the thing for me.
That's exactly right, because like even if you try it once, it may not work that one time.
Right.
But it may work 2 or 3 other times down the
Absolutely.
road type thing. And so that's
Absolutely.
why I haven't sold the 1963 camper, because it's staying put, because it's going to be there when I need it.
Yes.
I just need to focus on getting the store up and running and proceeding on in Noblesville.
Okay, so let's talk about the biggest change and transition that you've made in your business. And that was literally moving a retail space from Brazil, Indiana to Noblesville. We talked a little bit about why and the charm of Noblesville. What were some of your biggest fears? Was there anything that almost held you back, or was there anything that you really had to think through? What did your planning look like? What did that transition look like for you?
Well, there are many fears. To narrow it down to just
2, 3.
one is a little, but fear of failure is the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
Is that you look at people in the face and it's like, you're doing what? You're going to take your business and you're going to move it on the other side of the state?
Yeah.
And so I put a lot of thought and effort and energy into that, and I wanted to make the right move because I wouldn't put that business at jeopardy and have a secure location
Sure.
to go across the state. But when I looked at what I wanted to do, Noblesville, again, the characteristics of the small town feel to it and charm and character, I knew I wanted to be a part of that, as opposed to, it's not a negative type thing, as opposed to a Carmel or a Zionsville or something like that. When I picked Noblesville, I looked at demographics and what Noblesville's doing in their development of there are 4 large apartment buildings built around this location that I specifically sought out and picked out. And when you look at the potential to increase furniture sales just by people moving
Right.
into an area,
Right.
I mean,
That's very strategic.
it's very strategic.
And I think you've taken something that you love and you've got a natural strength for, right? Which is home decor. And you've got to think about it in terms of a business as well, though. And I think so many times business owners forget that they're running a business. And you mentioned, we've got to pay attention to things like profitability and everything. You have to have a profit to keep a healthy business. You have to have a profit to grow. You have to have a profit to bring on new vendors, all of the things, right? And so becoming, kind of stagnant over those years, a lot of companies don't take the time to really look at the financial side of the business, the operations side of the business, no matter what your business is. And I would consider that business, I was like, people come to you because they're happy. They're excited to decorate a new room. They're excited about their new home or their new apartment or whatever that they just bought or leased. And it might be first for them. It might just be new. It might be a new start in their life. It might have been a life change. And so to have all of that and that excitement around that, we can't lose perspective that it's still a business.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that strategy that you talked about, having the apartment buildings around you.
Yep.
And then obviously being able to target and market to those people and to be able to reach out and to build a community around them.
Totally. And then what I went to do to create a name for myself in Noblesville is that I went to those 4 apartment complexes, and I said, hey, for your new home move-in packets that you give
Yeah.
to the people that are moving into these apartments, that's 600 residents within that small little territory right there. And if I can make an impact and get just a few people out of that, I mean, that's...
It's huge. And so many times, I know, like, when I do some shopping like that, I'm always bringing somebody with me.
Yep.
Because again, it's enjoyable. So, like, I might bring my mom, I'll bring a friend of mine. And so then you're naturally reaching out to those beyond the 600, you've got their entire network.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Every time somebody comes to their home, where'd you get that from?
Yeah. And creating that experience this is a fun story to tell, is that on the very first day, opening day in Noblesville, met a new customer, and she came into the store, wanted to see what it was all about, and she came back that same day with a friend. And
See?
so that same day,
Yeah.
she brought somebody into the store, and I made a joke the rest of the day after that. People leaving the store, I go, okay, so what are you going to do for me? Is that
The bar's up here.
I go, this lady over here, she brought her friend back on day 1.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so come on, people.
Yeah.
Don't,
Hey,
no slackers.
I'll give you a week.
I'll give you 10 minutes.
Yeah. I'm way more generous, right?
Right.
With that week, yeah.
Right.
I tell you, I think having the strategy behind that we talked about, going back to kind of your fear of failure, right? So many people have that fear of failure, whether you want to admit it or not. That's what holds people back from being their best selves,
Right.
is that fear of failure. You know, I say in our business, I attribute the success of where we are today, the work-life balance that we have today, the love that I have for our business today, on some of those failures that we went through. And we did, you know, and I don't talk about those in a negative way, because they were such a learning experience, and they were so impactful on who we are today, who we want to be, and who we want to be for other people.
Yep.
Right? So just think, if you had let that fear of failure hold you back,
Yep.
the difference of where you'd be. Now, you might have a little bit more time on your hands than what you do right now,
Right.
right? But what are we going to do with all that time,
Right, exactly.
So going back, Andy, for a minute, is there anything that you would have done differently? In the 4.5 years that you've had this business, and the move, the pop-ups, everything, is there anything that you said, man, that was a really hard lesson, or I might have done this differently?
I would say no to that question. Is that
like it.
everything, I'm a firm believer of everything happens for a reason.
Me too. Yeah.
And, you know, whether it's the universe telling you that or something like that, but everything happens for a reason. And if I would have not moved to Brazil, Indiana, I wouldn't have started A B Farmhouse, and there wouldn't be an A B Farmhouse, there wouldn't be an A B Homes. And so all of that leads to the next step.
Yeah.
And what I built there is leading me to the next step of where I need to be, and I'm a firm believer of that. So I would not take back anything that I've done.
I love that. I love it. When we go back to kind of signs that you need to make a change, did you have, besides profitability, because we talked about, like, we got a little stagnant and things like that, and so thinking about the future, is there any other sign that you feel like you had that, man, this is really, I know you talked a little bit about, like, you know, getting back to your family and kind of those homegrown roots that you had. Was there anything else that you felt like you felt or was an indicator in your business that it was time to make a change?
Yeah, well, I think all of those changes that you just mentioned were what led up to it, type thing. But the biggest key factor in that is that, you know, looking at the demographics of it, and, you know, you got to be where the growth is, and if you know, and it's not a negative on Brazil, Indiana at any state,
No.
is that, but when I look at what is going on in Noblesville and the growth and development there, how can I not take this business that's doing okay over here, plop it down into this, like, massive growth opportunity?
Yeah.
And how can I not fail?
Right.
Right?
Right. I think that's a great point. Were you afraid of upsetting your existing client base in Brazil? Were you afraid that they would feel abandoned, or that, you know, how did you, okay, here would be my question. How did you cope with that, I guess? Because we play all these what ifs in our head all the time. What if people are mad at me? What if people, you know, all of these things. And then two, is that the response that you had, or did you have a different response from them?
I was totally terrified of letting the people of Brazil know what my plans were because I felt a connection to that community, and Brazil will always be in my heart. I mean,
sure.
it will always be that to me, but I didn't want to disappoint and let them down, and so I had to think, what's best for Andy? And a lot of times we have to
That's
reflect
hard
on
for
that.
us. Yes. Yes.
And I could have continued to do and maintain and keep that Brazil connection and done it for Brazil, but is that what's best for Andy?
Mhm.
And that's the hard like self to self talk that I had to have with myself.
Yeah.
And when I finally said, you got to do what's best for you. Andy's got to get to retire, because what I ultimately want to do is get to retirement sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I don't want to be working until I'm 80 years old.
No,
and I want to enjoy what I want to do. And so to do that means for me, make more money to get into my retirement account to do what I want to do in the long term.
Yeah. It's like that next adventure that we're looking for, right?
Right.
I think that's really cool. And I'm from a small town in southern Indiana, and one thing that is so great about small towns is I feel like people rally behind you, right? And
Absolutely.
so as a new business owner, as all the things that you did in the community, and I know there were a lot of things with Christmas and the holidays and everything in Brazil that you were really an integral part of.
Yep.
I think having that, even though you're not there anymore, you'll always, I think, Andy Stone and Brazil will always be tied together. And I think that the community doesn't forget that. Small towns, they're really special in that way. Yep. Moving up here to Noblesville as a new start, I would imagine that you'll have some of your Brazil folks that'll take a road trip up to Noblesville.
Oh, absolutely. Already have.
That's so cool.
Within that first week, I had customers from Greencastle traveling to Noblesville, and I mean, so that's impactful. And the back to the scary part of that is that not wanting to disappoint my client base there. What was surprising was that overwhelming number of people on social media would post that we're sad for our community, but we're happy for you.
People are so good, Andy, and I feel like so many times we feel selfish having to look out for ourselves or having to ask the question of what's best for Andy, right? What's best for Renee? But to be at our best, we have to be at our best to really serve other people. We're actually going to be talking about that on my next episode. Travis is going to be joining me again, and we're going to be talking about kind of a client versus a customer feel. Is it a transaction or is it a relationship? And how do we build those relationships with our clients? And you've done that. You are a great example of how you've built those relationships. And even if you're not physically in that spot anymore, those people are right there with you, supporting you, whether it's here in Noblesville or whether it's through social media, whether it's support in any way. And I think it's just kudos to you. You have built such an incredible brand. You're so important to the community and such a contributor. And I'm really blessed to know you.
Aww.
Yeah. So Andy, thank you for being on today. We're going to kind of wrap up a little bit, but I would love to know as we wrap up here, what are you excited about for the future? Like, where do you see yourself in the coming months?
Yep. So thanks for having me. Always good to see you.
But
what I'm excited about, and it's coming up very soon, May 17th is the Peonies Festival in Noblesville, Indiana. And so if you haven't heard about this thing, when I first moved there, everybody was like, oh, it's so crazy. And I was like, define crazy. What are you talking about? They go crazy in a good way. I go, okay.
I need to be there then.
Right? They go 30,000 people plop into the city and all in one day. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do I prepare for 30,000 people coming over to my house, basically?
Yeah.
And so anyway, getting back to the community involvement is that I jumped headfirst into getting actively involved in Noblesville. And so I'm one of the designers that is going to decorate. There are maps on the square that give direction of where businesses are located. And so they decorate those. The Peonies Festival gives you X number of peonies to decorate this map to kind of create your mark and that type of thing. Then they'll put like a little QR code to direct you to the store. I took it one step further is on opening day, the grand opening, February 28th, which you came to, is that that was a call out for designers to get your information into them, and I was selected by the Peonies Festival Committee to create this artwork to put out in front of A B Farmhouse that will be featured as part of one of the designers for the event.
Wow,
and
that
so
is
I'm
cool.
super excited about it.
Man, and I tell you what, just to bring people in to see the artwork and everything that'll be all around the square right in front of your place.
I want those 30,000
yes, right there.
foot tracks through the store.
Yeah, again, very strategic, right? A lot of planning. The time that we have to put into these changes and the tweaks that have to be made in our business as we go along the way always is going to take time. It's going to take a little bit of money, and it's going to take some strategy. Always pays off. Always pays off. And then don't forget that community involvement.
Don't forget it.
All right, Andy, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for joining me on the Lasting Business Solutions podcast, and I look forward to seeing you next time as Travis is back and we talk about transactional versus relationships with our clients.